Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Legalbytes. We've been waiting on Good Logic, but he's not here yet, so we figured we would just go ahead and get started, and he can join us later, and we can shame him when he gets here. so,
Sounds
uh,
good.
so how's everyone doing? Kurt, how are you doing?
I'm doing fairly well this morning. How are you doing, Alita?
I'm doing very well. I have my Indiesaurus Rex here on the chair. It's Halloween week, so I had to dress up Indy, much to the chagrin of Mr. Bites. He's not a fan of costumes on dogs, but I love it. I love it, and she doesn't really like it so much, but she's relaxed, so it's fun. It's fun. She can just be a dogosaur. Um, so anyway, but otherwise, if you guys who are watching, if you are new here, be sure to like the video if you're enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel. And if you are new to Uncivil Law's channel, be sure to head on over and check out his channel as well. And if Good Logic shows up, show up to his as
Yeah,
well.
only if it's show, only if it shows up though. Otherwise, don't.
Otherwise, don't check him out. Forget him. but but otherwise, and one last bit of news: I just set up memberships on my channel. So
Ooh.
I've been getting bugged by YouTube. I keep getting notifications on the
Now, did you
YouTube
do did you
Studio.
did you do an uncivil law for the Lilla price of 99 cents a month, or did you go with a higher rate?
No, I went. Yeah, I went with whatever they recommended.
4.99,
So
I think, is what they recommend.
yeah, I think so. I think so. So, but you get really fun different food emojis depending on how long you've been a member. So it starts with
Ooh.
healthier and then it gets to the more delicious stuff. So yeah, so if you guys like the channel and obviously no pressure whatsoever. I mean, I've been pushing off setting up the memberships anyway for a long time. But just kind of a fun way to support it if you want. You can add emojis and add, icons and whatnot for when you comment and stuff. Yeah, that would be super appreciated if you want it. And if not, no big deal. But otherwise, let's get into some of this super interesting stuff. We've got a packed week as usual these days.
People are always doing stupid things, and there's stupid things happen, and courts have to deal with the stupid stuff. Yeah, it's basically the same situation as normal. It's just which stupid stuff is it going to be today? That's why on my channel I usually have that tagline where we learn through the misfortunes of others,
That's
because
a
it's
really
like,
good one.
yeah, yeah.
That is a really good tagline. Every time that I've come across it, and you obviously intro with your videos with that, I'm always like, damn, I wish I would have thought of that.
Trademark. Actual use.
I know, and I like mine too. We explain the law one bite at a
One
time.
bite,
So
one bite at a time. That's right.
yeah. So
We
so
consume
anyway,
the law.
of course,
You are what you eat. You are law. I love it. Yes.
you are what you eat. Yeah, exactly. So oh, we have a super chat. Thank you, Andy, for the super chat. Great to see Uncivil Law bursting with energy as always. Maybe we'll get him to sing a song at some point in stream.
Oh, no problem. That's no problem. I'm definitely down. I'm not promising it will be sung well, but we will sing it one way or another, and you will enjoy it.
Sounds good. I'm under a contractual obligation to enjoy it. So anyway, oh hey, Eric Hunley's in the chat too.
Hey, looking forward to talking to him tomorrow. That'll be great.
All right. Yes, I will be on there as well. I'm sure we'll be talking about the same subject.
Is that a new logo
So
for Eric, or is that the same logo? I like the logo.
I think it's the same one. It's been there for a bit.
Okay, that's a good logo.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. So speaking of Eric Hunley,
Uh huh.
I was telling you backstage, I watched his conversation with Mark Gruber on his second channel on America's Untold Stories, which I've actually linked in the description below. It was really good because he was talking about the same subject, talking about Alec Baldwin, the whole film set shooting on the set of Rust. And Mark was giving his perspective from as somebody who has been an actor in these kinds of scenes, and sort of like what is the norm, what are the different relationships between these different uh, uh, roles that people have, the armorer, the assistant director, et cetera. And it was really interesting. So if you guys, are looking for more content on the subject, be sure to go and check that out because it's really good. Anywho, yeah, let's get into it. We covered the Alec Baldwin shooting on Friday, Saturday. When was it? Like almost immediately.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right. Yeah, and a week later, more facts have come to light, and the situation gets worse.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny because it's like I was looking back at the live stream, and I was like, I do not have the same opinion that I did back then, because things just keep coming out, and they're just getting worse and worse and worse. So for anyone that has not been on Twitter, that has not even heard about the situation last week. Just in case you happened to be, I don't know, on the International Space Station and you just got back. I don't know. Maybe you've been working on one of Elon Musk's latest SpaceX missions. I don't know. So just in case you are unaware. So what happened was Alec Baldwin was on the set of filming the movie Rust. It's an independent film. They were on location in New Mexico. They were, I guess, in between takes or about to start a take, and he was rehearsing with a revolver. And I guess during the rehearsal, when he was sort of practicing his movement to get the gun and aim or something, in that process, the gun went off. Turns out it was a loaded gun with real ammunition, and it struck the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, and it went through her, and then it also struck Joel Souza, the director. She passed away, unfortunately, and he is injured, hospitalized. I believe he's been released. So now there's been this whole firestorm about who's responsible. Is there any sort of criminal or civil liability? And if so, who's got it? How much do they have? And how much worse is this going to get for everybody involved?
Yeah. So the answer to who has liability is yes. And the answer to how much is lots. Yes.
And one thing that I do want to address is I know somebody in the chat here is talking about the prop gun. So I know that there's been a big to-do about the fact that the media is calling it a prop gun. So
I mean, definitionally, it's a prop gun because a prop is just anything that's used on set as a item for the show. So saying something is a prop doesn't say whether it's real or not.
Right.
If it's used on camera or to be used on camera, definitionally, it's a prop.
Yes. And if it's set up as part of the decoration of the scene, then it's not actually being used or manipulated by a person, by an actor in the scene, then it's not a prop, it's a set piece. So then it would be a set gun if it's, like used as decoration, apparently. That's at least what Mark Rivera said. That's something that
there you go.
So if you want to learn that kind of stuff, go and check out the video. I'm really plugging a lot of this for Eric Hunley.
Why not? He's a great guy. He deserves some plugs.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. It was
he's the one who managed to corral all the lawyers together. I'm not.
I know.
So, somehow.
It's like herding cats somehow. Somehow he's been able to get us all together and pretty much get along. It's pretty good.
Getting along part wasn't that hard, but actually getting coordinated, that was the problem.
That's true. So the thing is, like, even though they're calling it a prop gun, that doesn't mean that it's any less of a gun. It's still a gun. It's just used as a prop on a film set. So it's very much fully a gun. But the difference is, in terms of safety, is whether or not it is loaded with live ammunition or whether it is not. Right?
Well, even as has been noted, even blanks can be dangerous, particularly at close range. So blanks also are not nothing.
Right. And so there are still so many questions that are being asked right now about this whole situation, but as facts have been developing, like I said, it's been just getting worse and worse and worse. So when we first heard about it, all we knew was that Alec Baldwin was in a scene and he had a revolver in his hand and it went off, and now one person's dead and another person's injured. So that's pretty much all that we knew. And based on those facts, we were even saying how that sounded like a bar exam question, right? Because we were talking about
it's still a bar exam question. It's still a bar exam question, but it's more fact with more facts. Yeah.
True. So it's Yeah. So, as to the issue of intent, anytime that we're talking about, either in criminal charges or with civil claims, intent is going to matter here, right? Or at least it'll make a big difference, because when we're talking about murder or, involuntary manslaughter, not so much, but voluntary manslaughter, you have to have the requisite mens rea, culpable mental state.
Sure.
So, but in this particular case, if he was in the middle of filming something, there was no argument, there's no facts around them, right, to suggest that anyone would be angry at one another. There's some sort of a passionate, heated argument or something.
Yeah, that would make it voluntary manslaughter if you had that sudden, impulsive argument thing. There, you get voluntary manslaughter under the relevant state law.
Right. But in this particular case, it looks like probably what we're going to be looking at for each of these individuals is involuntary manslaughter.
Yep.
So, we can pull up the statute again.
It's always a good place to start. It's always a good place to think. Why not actually look at the statute? Let's look at
the
probably a good place to start.
Let's see here. And I totally 100% should have done this before I went live, but
that's all right.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's see.
Do it live.
We'll do it live. Okay. All right, let's see statutes. Come on. Okay. All right, here we go. And this time I'm pulling it up on case text, so we know it's good law.
Well, we know saying it's good law. We know it's what the legislature wrote.
Sure. Okay. Good point.
Let's be super hyper-technical just to be annoying.
Yeah. Let's be super lawyery.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got the New Mexico statute, section 30-2-3. It says manslaughter is the unlawful killing of a human being without malice. So basically without intending to actually kill someone. Voluntary manslaughter consists of manslaughter committed upon a sudden quarrel or in the heat of passion. So that's what I was describing earlier. Like if there was some sort of an argument that he's like, no, you didn't pay me.
You walking in, your wife cheating on you. There you go.
Yes,
that kind of thing.
That's usually it. Oh, and look who we have here. Hello.
Oh, it's Nick Revere. Hi, Nick.
Nick 2.0.
Thank you very much. Look, he's the king of the grift, and he's teaching me all he knows. So I'm doing my best.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yes, we were just discussing the statutes.
When I seen NM statutes, manslaughter, I know you were talking Baldwin. So I'm
excellent.
I'm a pro.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Yeah, so we just read part A about voluntary manslaughter and determined that even still under the facts as they have developed up to now, even though it's been a very changed case since we first looked at it on Saturday or whenever. Right. So voluntary manslaughter still nothing on that. No evidence.
It's too low. It's higher than that. That's what you're all missing. Because I keep my ear to the ground. Okay, I have a friend. I can't say what his name is. I can't say. We'll just call him Q.
Mr.
Just for
X.
Q and Q tells me that Ms. Hutchins' husband works for a law firm involved with exposing the Clintons, and that she was going to be doing expose in exposing the Clintons.
No.
And
no, come on.
And certain things involving pizza and pandas and other young children issues. I won't go into further detail. I'm not at liberty to speak at this time. But that Baldwin may have been implicated.
Oh, God. And look at that. Our monetization is yellow. Actually, literally.
Yeah.
I just went and checked it, and it's yellow.
I didn't say anything.
So
I'm just saying.
Logic. Goodbye. I'm just kidding.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. I will tell you.
Can we stick to facts and
okay? I will tell you this. Everything I just said now is things I have actually heard people claim.
Yeah,
but people are
heard
dumb.
that as well.
I'm just sharing. I'm just telling you. I get callers on my show. I was like, okay, that's a thing.
Yeah.
I've also heard the moon landings were fake. Do we? Why are we discussing this?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
We can move on to New Mexico Statute Section 30-2-3B.
Ooh. So, Angry Banling, thank you so much for your super chat. He says he taught you all you knew about grifting, but you haven't sent him an NYPD hat yet. Whew, how could you, Joe? Joe, come on.
I don't get chats. I don't get super chats from Angry Banling either. So I don't know. I must suck at being a student because you're much better than I am.
Andy, thank you for your super chat. He says, not a lawyer, which is true. I can verify. He says, the court should mandate Kyle Rittenhouse to teach Alec Baldwin firearm safety.
Truth.
That'd be awesome.
That is interesting.
That would be great community service. You know, have him be like the dojo master.
Require him to be an armorer.
Essentially, the 50 hours of community service by which we mean that you go into the public and tell everyone the virtues of being able to defend yourself.
Yes. That'd be great.
Fun times.
That's if he was in a red state. But.
So, yeah. Anyway, so let's take a look at involuntary manslaughter then. Mm-hmm. So involuntary manslaughter consists of manslaughter committed in the commission of an unlawful act not amounting to felony, or in the commission of a lawful act which might produce death in an unlawful manner or without due caution and circumspection. So the third clause is probably what's going to trigger this.
Yes. Without the due care and circumspection is probably most likely.
That is where this is really going to come down, because all of the information that has been coming out is talking about how, there were so many rounds of ammunition that were found. And there were, and we can get into all the details, but the fact that they were doing, target practice in between takes and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of interesting pieces that are kind of coming out that are going to put some weight on the portion where it says without due caution and circumspection, because obviously when we're talking about firearms, they obviously for reasons like this, they require the utmost care and caution and circumspection. So
yep.
Yeah. Anywho, did you guys happen to see the press conference that the sheriff and the DA did yesterday?
I read about it, but I didn't see it.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about it. What did he say?
Okay. So it was a relatively quick press conference, actually. Probably too much to play the whole thing here, but basically, so the sheriff spent quite a bit of time talking about the things that they've found so far through their investigation, which is still ongoing. I think they're planning to interview basically everybody that was on the grounds, but they've so far been able to interview everyone that was actually in the room, which was a much smaller group of people, because I think they were like inside a small church for the scene when it happened, and then they've also requested all kinds of whatever footage they have of the incident. They've requested, they have what they believe to be the gun, which apparently is a revolver, which makes sense considering the film and the time period and whatnot that it was covering. Yeah, exactly. And they found, like I mentioned earlier, 500 rounds of ammunition, which they said was a combination of blanks, dummies, and suspected live rounds. So I
read that was like laying around there. Like that was like, it wasn't just they found it. It's like anyone could have found it because it was just like laying around on set.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
which is supposed to not happen, like ever, as my understanding.
In any situation, anywhere, unless you're in Colombia. But like, within the
on a movie set, there's never supposed to be live ammo.
Oh yeah, that's correct. That's my understanding. There's never supposed to be live ammo. But I don't think there's any. It's hard to come up with any setting where people just leaving live ammo around is considered okay.
Yeah, this is a problem.
Yeah, I think so too. Now the amount of live ammo I don't think is clear at all, because he would not give specific numbers, because he said that everything had to be tested, and it was all getting sent, I think, to the FBI to be tested, including the gun itself that was involved in the incident. They send it over to Quantico to the FBI there to test it out, to see, if the lead piece that was pulled out of Joel Souza, if that matched, that gun, et cetera, et cetera. And so,
how could it not? But sure.
Yeah, that was, they pretty much suspected that it's a match between the two of them, but they just want to confirm, of course, as they absolutely should, because if there is potentially a criminal case that's coming out of this, or a civil case, you want to have that all confirmed.
Sure. Fair enough.
But he also said that based
and more to the point, by the way, Alita, I mean, like, if they would end up trying to actually go forward with prosecuting it, and they don't do this, well, they could lose the case on their failure to handle things properly.
Exactly. So that's why they have to dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and everything.
I withdraw my quip.
Jeez, Kurt, really? Come on.
Oh yeah, says you with the Q thing. Jesus Lord, come on. That is the
live rounds, or suspected live rounds. But the actual piece that was pulled out of Mr. Souza, they were saying that based on the circumstances, they believe it to be a live round, but they said that it needs to be confirmed through testing as well. So that'll be interesting once they've actually been able to, like I said, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and kind of go from there.
Because nothing short of a live round could pierce a person's stomach, back, and someone else's shoulder on one shot.
Even though it was from close range, apparently, like he was only like 5 feet away from the camera or something.
How the heck? Why would he be aiming at her? That's what I don't understand.
So apparently he was like rehearsing with the gun, like rehearsing like a crossbody like draw of the gun. And I mean, I don't know, maybe he didn't know how to properly hold it or something to not fire, but there may have been either he pulled the trigger, not realizing that it could, I don't know, cause harm from 5 feet away, which does not seem likely. It doesn't seem likely that he would not know that.
I'm pretty sure a blank can cause harm from 5 feet away.
Exactly. And so, right. And I understand
this is
that
where Q starts sounding less crazy.
No, it still sounds pretty insane.
Well, but there could have, I mean, it could have been that he didn't intend, maybe it slipped, maybe, something like that. But
well, it's my understanding this is a single action revolver, which would be correct for the time period as well, which means not only do you have to pull the trigger, you have to manually cock the hammer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's an interesting detail.
That is a really interesting detail. What the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
He's trying to practice his quick draw and manages to pull the hammer and the trigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
while aiming it at 5 feet away from someone, as opposed to just in nowhere, and ignoring the fact that even though he was told it was a cold gun, that 5 days earlier the person, his stunt double who had misfired, was also told it was a cold gun.
I object to the term misfired. Negligently fired is better.
Negligently discharged.
Yeah.
What's the distinction for you?
A misfire would be that the gun doesn't go off. So a misfire, technically, from a gun perspective, is where you fire. There's an actual bullet, blank or otherwise. You fire it, and it just doesn't go off. Usually this would be because the powder is somehow damaged because it got wet or whatever. But yeah, that's a technical misfire.
Right, and besides, when you're discussing Alec Baldwin, who happens to be one of the biggest jerks walking the earth, referring to him recklessly discharging seems far more apt. So,
yeah, yeah. So to
I didn't think of that one yet, did you?
To have a true accident, you'd have to have some sort of mechanical thing, which seems impossible in this kind of gun because again, you need the hammer back. So, what an accidental discharge would look like in this situation is hard to even fathom. But yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah. So that's one possibility of how that happened. I mean, if the goal of the next scene, or one of the goals, one of the shots that they were going to get in the next scene was him pointing at the camera, that's also a possibility too. Because, you know, like how many, I mentioned this the other day, that how many movies have you seen that are these kind of like shoot 'em up movies where, you know, you see from the vantage point of the person getting shot, right? You're looking down the barrel of the gun as the viewer.
Yeah.
Like that's also a possibility.
I'm also curious why there wasn't some sort of ballistic glass between the camera and the firearm.
I was just gonna say that like
sorry,
I would expect.
I stole your
No,
thunder.
that's okay. That's okay. That's why it's all jazz. It's fine. So I was gonna say that I would have expected there to be some sort of glass behind them that's, you know, that's intended to prevent something like that from you know, going someplace where it's not supposed to go. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So anywho, but yeah, so obviously there are still many questions, especially as to what Alec Baldwin exactly was doing, and if he intended to pull the trigger, if he thought that something was going to happen, or if he didn't think that something was going to happen, you know, or if like the gun slipped in his hand or something, and I don't know. I have no idea.
Or, I mean, look, as far as like Kurt's point about how he had to pull back the hammer, it could be that will be his point as to exactly why he was practicing. Because in this sort of thing, he has to show that in the movie, presuming he has to show that he can quick draw and fire. So in that case, that would be why he would specifically be practicing with this gun, pulling it out as fast as possible, cocking and firing, you know, and trying to do it in a split second. Yeah. So that would explain why. That it's not that he wasn't just like trying to practice his quick draw as far as how to present the gun, but how fast he can actually pull it out and get it fired. So. Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, if he was actually trying to practice all of that, again, the question of why wasn't there some sort of you know, protective glass setup behind, you know, or in front of him or whatever, you know what I mean?
Or just not facing people. I don't know. Or look inside your gun. When you know you're going to be firing it directly at someone, all the more reason. If he's not planning on firing at someone, that's the whole 5 feet thing really comes into play. And that's a detail. That's the detail that I had not heard yet. So if he's really facing her when he's firing it, to me that's insanity. That's real. Yeah. That's really insane because it takes all 4 seconds to look inside and just double check that, hey, is this weapon actually cold and not hot like the time we had 5 days ago and someone was told it's cold now? Yeah. I mean, how we have all these bullets laying around. We have a skeleton crew. And I know we have a skeleton crew and that some of them are walking out because of lack of safety. And that some of them are kind of idiots. And that there's at least one idiot who's been on this set when we were fully staffed. And now I'm going to pull a trigger without actually taking the time to double check and make sure there's a blank there. And I'm going to actually intentionally aim and pull a trigger at someone. Cock, aim, boom, as fast as I can, 5 feet away from them without double checking to make sure it's cold. I'm sorry. That's not even that's beyond negligence to me. That's like you have to be out of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this off stream between Alita and I. It's like the basic rules of firearm safety require a paranoid, you know, repetitive attention to detail. So what should have happened is, even assuming everything happened correctly up to the gun being put on the cart. So even assuming everything correct happened up to that point, which seems not to be true in reality, but even with that reality, you would still, as the prop master or the armorer, you would still manually clear it in front of everybody, because that's how much repetitive, you know. You already have done this probably 2 or 3 times, but in front of everyone, you're going to take out a rod, you're going to shove it down the barrel to show that there's nothing in the barrel. You know, if the gun isn't already loaded, which it probably shouldn't be, but if it is, then you take out all the rounds, you inspect them again to make sure that they are what they're supposed to be, or you get them, you manually inspect them, and you do this in front of everyone in a very sort of methodical, repetitive way, because rule number 1 of firearm safety is the gun is always loaded. So it requires, you know, it's like, okay, if you don't have the gun in your constant possession all the time, so you put it on the cart and you turn your back for 2 seconds, it's now no longer no longer the state of that gun. You have to do it again.
Yep.
So the fact that there wasn't this methodical, repetitive, almost
by the way, that's habit.
Like
that should be his habit. Any gun user's habit is to do that, and I'm sure he's held a gun 100 times in his life. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so going back to some of there's many legal questions. It's like, why wasn't the armor on set? Now, I don't necessarily take objection to them firing, the guns on, during their breaks or stuff, because why not? It's always good to have more training with a firearm, as long as it's being done under the proper supervision. As long as there is a range master, a range safety officer on site, which should be there, to make sure, and to check the guns when they're going out to make sure no live ammo is being taken. And still also, by the way, the prop master and stuff still needs to double check and triple check and quadruple check. But all that stuff, I don't have objection to that. But it's like, why wasn't the range safety? Why wasn't the why didn't a range safety officer exist to make sure those guns weren't taken out with live ammo? Why wasn't the prop master there? Why wasn't the armorer there? Yeah. Why wasn't these things being checked? Especially with these prior incidents on the same set, which gives you a heightened knowledge of, like, if you didn't already know before, it's like you should have heightened knowledge now. And how did that not happen is bizarre. So,
and the fact that he's an executive producer, if he was just an actor on it, he might not know everything that's going on. But as an executive producer, his knowledge as an actor is changed and more enhanced than other actors on the set.
Something about that, though, I'm going to push back on that just a little bit, because so the video that I watched on Eric Hunley's channel with Mark Gruber, Gruber said that in this kind of a situation, so Alec Baldwin is a producer. Yes, he is. But his production company is kind of more like just a holding company. It's like a tax haven, essentially, or a tax shelter. So he's really a producer only in name. He's not one of the guys that's like a real producer that's actually overseeing the whole thing. It's really more of a
he's someone who goes on the credits as producer, even though he does Jack as a producer. That's what you're trying to say.
So basically, you do that by saying, hey, you can pay me, little to nothing as an actor, but then I'll get whatever percentage of the profits on the back end, or my company will. And so then it goes through the company, and then he gets tax benefits, et cetera, et cetera.
It's for Hollywood accounting purposes that they do this, right?
It's also
every movie creates a fictional company. So this is just how Hollywood accounting works, by the way. So we can talk about something different. Yeah.
But it also is part of Hollywood ego inflating, that they're able to, like, be listed as producer even though they don't do anything as producer. It's both. It's both. It's accounting. It's accounting, and it's ego inflation.
It's probably one way that they got Alec Baldwin to star in this film, because it is a small indie film, right? It's a lower budget film. So they probably were like, how can we possibly get someone like Alec Baldwin, to star in it? Well, let's work out this deal so that he gets paid in this different way or whatever, and he gets producer credits or whatever.
Or we can tell him his intent, the victim he's been stalking for a long time, Helena Hutchins, is going to be directing, and then boom.
That he's been stalking. Oh, jeez.
That's another theory. That's another theory. I'm not saying that's fact. That was just speculation.
There's no evidence of that. So I will say that for
zero
all the people,
evidence of that.
For the YouTube people that are reviewing this, we are not promoting that theory, because we are going to do this from a fact-based analysis.
Right. No, that was definitely not fact, what I just said, in case the lawyers are watching this stream.
Just to make sure that the overlords who are determining our fate understand that.
Yeah, you're worried about Susan. I'm worried about a defamation suit. So there you go.
Well, you know how hard it is to defame a public figure, so you should be fine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So that's that on the producer aspect. But so we can talk about each of the individuals that are involved, aside from Alec Baldwin, right?
Well, in when they were talking about how they were interviewing everyone on the set, are they interviewing all the people who marched off set? Because those are people who I think might be really relevant as far as background.
Probably.
Yep.
I think they would be very relevant too. So my guess is that yes, they are probably interviewing everyone that has had anything to do with this film, probably. But that's an interesting point. So we should probably go over the timeline of events that happened leading up to this. So just like a really quick overview. So there were a bunch of problems with apparently people getting paid. There were bounce checks. People were not getting paid for their time. So a lot of the crew members were getting very upset. A lot of crew members were also apparently upset about safety issues.
Oh, Eric Hunley is saying this is a non-union thing, so it could be part of the whole upset thing. Because whenever you're not union, you're going to end up having people who are going to start griping that they're not getting
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I did not realize that this is a non-union production.
Right, and I'm very not pro-union, but that doesn't change the reality that.
Yeah.
Although in this circumstance, I'm okay with unions. I'm less okay with unions in public service kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyone who's dealing with the government, I really can't stand unions. In general, I'm okay with unions. Right, when they have other when they're dealing with private entities. But
yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. So anyway,
crashed.
Oh no! Welcome back, Uncivil Law. You've been demoted now to the bottom. Since now you're last to arrive. So yes. Anyway, so apparently there were a bunch of people that were really upset about this stuff. They were also upset about the guys like the video if you're enjoying it. They were also upset about the safety standards, generally speaking, apparently on the set. So a bunch of people walked off. I don't know when people started walking off, but I know that the morning of, one person did walk off, and that was the property master, the prop master, the guy that's in charge of all the props, including the guns. So that's a really important detail. He left that morning, apparently just walked off set, and then they decided to break for lunch. The production team, I guess, tried to find a new prop master. After lunch, they happened to find a new prop master just to get in there. And during lunch, while they were also trying to find a new prop master to oversee all of these, pieces of film set material, or I guess not film set material, that's a misnomer, but all of these different items that these actors are supposed to be using for the set or for the filming, the armorer was also doing, or I don't know if the armorer was involved, but there was target practice that was going on during lunch. So someone had at least one of these guns and was doing target practice with them. I don't know what kind of ammunition they were using with them, if it was live rounds or if it was, blanks or whatever, but they were using something in this gun or these guns, and they were shooting at something. So eventually all three of the guns, because there's apparently three of them that were used for the filming, all of them were put back onto the prop cart, which is supposed to indicate that they are safe, right? That they are cold guns, meaning that they don't have any live rounds in them. Uh-huh. And then they go back to filming. The armorer is not around for one reason or another. I did read at some point that it had to do with COVID protocols, that like she wasn't supposed to be around.
Bullshit.
Or something. But that to me, yes, exactly.
A comedy of errors that they're trying to mask by relying on.
Oh, it's COVID, so we're definitely going to exclude the armorer. Oh, that
yes.
Definitely, yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't know if that's still being reported or not, but I remembered seeing something about like because of COVID she like wasn't supposed to be around or something. But that seems like that's a very central point where the head armorer needs to be around.
Well, COVID is literally more dangerous than a bullet, so I guess that makes sense.
Yes, that's also another point.
This sounds like a defense of not sending your tax check to the IRS because you're worried that there'll be COVID on the check.
I'd say we don't need gun control, we need COVID control, but we're already there, so the joke doesn't work. So never mind.
Yeah. So for one reason or another, the armorer is not back after lunch when they want to get started. Apparently they had to move things around on the set because there were creeping shadows that were happening. So, they were already kind of dealing with these timing issues, dealing with, having to get a new prop master. And so without the armorer there, the armorer was supposed to be the person who takes the gun from the prop table or prop cart, checks it, makes sure that it's safe, hands it to Alec Baldwin. That's the chain of custody, apparently. She wasn't there. So the assistant director, who was supposed to be the guy that's, keeping everything choppy, moving everything forward. And apparently he went and got it and assumed it was safe and told Alec Baldwin it's cold.
You know what happens when you assume?
Yes. You kill your cinematographer.
I was going to say you make an ass out of you and me, but yeah.
That's usually what people say.
So that person is definitely in line to be charged also, right?
Yes.
I mean,
And according to
someone has to be charged. Somebody has to be charged.
So the DA at the press conference yesterday said that so she said that she wouldn't give any information as to whether or not any charges will be filed, and if so, who would be charged. But she said all options are on the table. Basically, no one has been ruled out of being charged at this point. So it's entirely possible that everyone that's involved here could be charged, including Alec Baldwin, the assistant director, and the armorer.
Because my initial thought.
Hang on. I'm gonna mute.
So my initial thought was, it has to that this is a fairly liberal state, and he is as part of the Hollywood elitist liberal circle as anyone in Hollywood, and that would help him slide past any sort of, that would give him protection from on high beyond what the facts may call for, and that was my concern, and that still remains my concern. And that made me think there's not going to be any charges pressed. But then as I'm thinking about it more, I'm thinking like they have to press charges against somebody, right? I mean, they have to press charges against. They can't just not press charges. Say, well, it was an accident. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's really insane. Guy pulls a gun on someone. You have to press charges either against him or the prop master or both for negligence. Yeah. And so once you're pressing against the prop master, well, how can they not actually press charges against the shooter? That's almost impossible. So I don't know how.
I mean, Alec Baldwin is in the best position. He's in order of like worst to best. It's a race between the assistant director, because he's in control of the entire set, and so kind of a buck stops with him problem in terms of the operation of the set. So his liability is immense, and then the prop master / the armorer, are obviously deep in the
gun hander over in this case. Yeah, it's really the gun hander over.
And also the assistant director handed over the gun and said it was safe, so there's that too.
Right.
So the assistant director is, and then with the prop master armorer, they're in some sort of race for who's in the worst position. Alec Baldwin is in the best position of the group, because his argument's a little bit different, because like, I can rely on these people, but I had specific knowledge I couldn't, But his position's a little bit better. The armorer and AD are in trouble though. Yeah,
I would agree with that. So another thing is, and I know that, on the one hand, I want, I want to say that just like with any firearm situation, that anyone handling it is supposed to, treat it with the respect that it is due, right? And that goes also with Alec Baldwin. At the same time, though, how easy is it for an actor to check if, to check the chamber, to check if there are rounds, to check, for him to do it individually on his own, as somebody who, I don't know, like, again, he's got plenty of experience in these kinds of movies, but how much, how understand about it? You know what I mean?
I mean, assuming he knows what to look for, which is probably likely because it's not his first rodeo. But he should have sufficient knowledge to be able to inspect it himself. Whether or not he has a duty to do so, I mean, from a firearms safety standpoint, of course he does. Like, if I'm your firearms instructor, of course you do. I would tell you, if I was teaching you, that like, even though you just saw me just now clear the firearm and hand it to you, you need to clear it as well. It's like, you can't, and once you hand it back to me, I'm going to clear it as well, having just seen you do that.
It probably is not an industry standard,
the only way to be safe.
That's probably not an industry standard, though. The question is,
no, probably not.
I don't think it is. So, I mean, but that could be something that may need to change, right?
let's face reality. If he gets charged with anything, he'll plead. They'll allow him to plead down to some lesser included reckless conduct in public type of charge.
Criminally negligent homicide, maybe New Mexico has some version of that on this book.
No, but nothing related to homicide is what I'm saying. They'll let him plead down to something which has no jail time and give him like community service. That's a worst case scenario. That's what I'm predicting for Alec Baldwin. I don't think we're going to see the Alec Baldwin trial that I assume all three of us and most of the world would love to see, but that he'll plead down to community service on something. That seems the most likely scenario, and for all the reasons that we discussed, that he's part of the elitist liberal Hollywood circle, and the fact that you can try to pin it on the assistant director here, and that individual seems far more culpable. So if they're going to go for a conviction on anyone, they'll go for him and say, okay, look, we got him on a he pled down because we didn't feel confident that we can get a conviction against him. It's very easy to sell. We didn't feel confident we got a conviction, so we pled him down to his community service, and now he's going to talk about gun control, and he'll be screaming against people having guns. That's going to be his new role in the world, is he'll be screaming against people having guns.
Wasn't that his old role?
Yeah, I was going to say, apparently he was paying it forward for the last 20 years. But that's my prediction as far as how this will play with respect to Alec as an individual. That's a shame. But
could be. I mean, you unfortunately have a high likelihood of being right. But another civil claim that could be filed is negligent hiring, because the head armorer here. She had only 2 films under her belt before this. And so arguably the reason why, she's like 24 years old. She's very young. She apparently grew up around guns because her dad was a really big wig armorer in Hollywood. So he's been on a bunch of films, including like a bunch of Quentin Tarantino films, all that kind of stuff. So arguably, the reason why she got this job is probably because of who her father is, more so than her actual experience in that role. Her first, she apparently she worked on the sets of 2 movies before this one. The first one, I mean, I can't remember what it was called, but she was like in costumes or something like that. And then after that, she was an armorer, not a head armorer, but an armorer on the Nicolas Cage film. And apparently she got some bad reviews from Nick Cage during the filming of that movie, because he got really upset or spooked or whatever by how she was firing off rounds without calling it ahead of time while they were filming. So understandably spooked. I can understand why that would freak anyone out. But then again, another person who worked with her on that set, apparently has come out and said that, she was very professional and she learned very quickly or something like that. But the idea, apparently, I don't know. But the idea
quickly.
The fun part, you see, this is what I love, is all this whole ledger just keeps making that the cost of that civil suit just jack up, boom, 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 higher. Because the civil suit against Alec Baldwin, that is coming. We might not get to see him face criminal charges. That civil suit is coming.
Yeah, I think at this point a civil case is just so almost guaranteed. Really,
it's not just guaranteed, but we're talking at least eight figures. This is going to be in many tens of millions.
Probably, yeah.
You don't think so?
Millions,
director,
maybe, but tens of millions?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's so much recklessness
for wrongful death
here.
For a cinematographer,
we might not ever know, because they might settle. They'll probably settle out of court eventually.
Probably. But
I doubt we'll ever know. That's the thing, is we're never going to feel any satisfaction. That's my I'm so cynical about the concept that we're ever going to see satisfaction on the criminal or civil charges as they relate to Alec Baldwin, because I do think he's going to plead down to a lesser included on the criminal, and the civil suits almost always settle. So
yeah, I mean, this is out of no love for Alec Baldwin, which I have none, nor any love for the movie industry, which I have none. As always, I just try to give a legal analysis, and I just think Alec Baldwin's legal exposure, both in a civil exposure, is problematic. But unless you can show some sort of recklessness or gross negligence, he's almost certainly covered by some sort of indemnity agreement. So I don't think that even his civil liability is looking a little sketchy. His criminal liability, he does have some knowledge elements which could get you there, but he's in the best posture. So I don't say it out of any love, but yeah, he might not be. His exposure, even in a vacuum, is not obvious, but the other people's are much more obvious.
Well, I happen to disagree with you on the civil side. I think that
fair enough.
I think his exposure there is considerable for failure to check the gun, the fact that his name is listed as producer.
Yeah, well, it is. It's just that, as I said, indemnity,
all the factors adding up there, and the fact that he happens to most assuredly be a far deeper pocket than the assistant director. I am sure that they're going to try and paint it as if he was the one who was most at fault, and that it's almost like we have the last clear chance issue. So he's the last clear chance of stopping this thing from happening, which makes him in certain ways far more more culpable than anyone. So because he's the last person there before the bullet ends up finding her chest or stomach or whatever part of her it hit, and. So in that sense, I that if you were the personal injury attorney on this, if we had Attorney Tom on this, which God knows, he would probably give away a pinky. He would probably sell a pinky.
But this isn't a catastrophic injury. This is below him, right?
when he was on my show a couple of days ago, and he was like, oh yeah, Joe, if you get me, because we were talking about farming out cases and giving a cut back to the attorney who farms out here, and he was like, yeah, I'll give you 60% of this one if you get it. I'm like, I'm on it. I'm totally on it.
Well, I'm going to chase you down. I want that 60%.
So.
Oh man. So, and somebody in the chat also said, I would guess that there was video. So there could be the sheriff at the press conference yesterday said that they've requested all video footage, but it sounded like he wasn't sure if they've actually received anything yet. So I would imagine that could take some time for them to go through and hand that over also, to document all of that.
Eric Hunley is referring to completion insurance. I'm not even sure what the term completion insurance means specifically in this context. Do you know what he's talking about?
I don't know about completion insurance, but I'm sure that all of these production companies are insured. So any settlement.
But the question is the level of insurance. That's what he was saying. He was like, if the level of insurance here is like $5 or even $10 million, he would not take that as a settlement in this case. He was like, no, I would go for much more. I would say I'm not waiving on the $10 million. I want to get a much higher amount, especially because that you really could get a judgment for many times that in theory you could, and that you're going after a pocket which actually might have it. If he was going after the assistant director, you have to assume that the director is not going to have millions of dollars that you can actually collect on it, but that Alec Baldwin, if you get a judgment against him, really could. So that's why the significance of the name and the expectation that he has a deep pocket, which, look, in reality, a lot of Hollywood people, I'm sure, are broke because they're financially morons. But in theory, you would think that he has tens of millions of dollars, or you could put a lien on the next film he's in, and collect money that way, even if he is broke. There's a lot of ways there's a lot of ways to skin that cat and expect that you'll be able to actually collect on that judgment, assuming you're successful in getting it. So,
well, this is a way to launch my acting career. I'm going to settle for a major part in the next motion picture.
Anyway, those are my thoughts on it.
Angry Banley, I didn't realize you were joking about that. The comment that I just put up about how he said Eric explains in detail what completion insurance is on his new channel, but I didn't realize that was a joke. He's just chilling Eric's channel. And Nate says Eric has a great video on it. Good to see you, Nate. So
I assume completion insurance would be insurance that they make money if they don't complete the movie. That's what I would assume it is.
That makes sense, yeah.
But I don't know how that would actually. I'm not sure if that would cover paying off a personal injury of a reckless homicide. That would pay for the damages that are incurred by not completing filming. But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just a thought.
I don't know. But anywho, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about on the subject before we move on?
Not in particular.
No, I'm good.
Because Indy is whining. She wants to hear about Kyle Rittenhouse.
No.
Let's talk about Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Kyle Rittenhouse is getting some good breaks and some good decisions. And
They ain't victims. They are not victims.
I love this judge's.
That's what the court. Yeah, that's what the judge decided.
I know what I'm saying. I understand.
They're not allowed. Yes. So
I love this because I've never heard. I and apparently neither has the prosecutor ever heard this concept before. Because referring them as victims is very, very common. But I think the judge is like, yeah, that makes sense. It was like, we don't know if they're victims or not because we don't know. Yeah,
it's putting the cart before the horse.
Exactly.
Putting the cart before the horse. It's like, that makes a lot of logical sense.
It's one of the ultimate conclusions of the case, right? So that's ultimately what the jury has to figure out is whether or not they're victims. So putting that label on them ahead of time is probably not something that is going to be, or I should say, that is something that is prejudicial for the prosecution in this case. Mm-hmm. So
it's kind of like
unfairly so.
It's kind of like saying Bin Laden was a victim of Rob O'Neill. Like he was a victim of Rob O'Neill, the ex-Navy SEAL who supposedly killed him. So yeah, he was a victim. So too, this guy who pulls out, tries to say, hey, everything was okay before doing a quick draw on him and loses in that little battle. Yeah, that he also is a victim. All right, you try mugging me and I end up shooting you. I guess you're a victim.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
I've heard people make those arguments in other contexts. So
that's what George Takei said. That's what George Takei said. He's like, he killed them. They're victims. And
no, I was thinking even worse than that. I remember a situation. I think it was Chicago, where there was an armed robbery. I want to say a CVS. Some of these details might be slightly wrong, but you'll forgive me. Mm-hmm. There's an armed robbery going on in a CVS. And a guy walking down the street, so maybe it wasn't Chicago, but anyways, a guy walking down the street had a concealed carry firearm on him legally. And so he decided to go into the store and thwart the bad guys, which he was able to do successfully. And then the family of the armed robbers were like, they're victims. He wasn't involved. He wasn't involved in this robbery. He went in and he decided to just shoot and murder them. He's a bad guy. Just listen to this family, bemoan this Good Samaritan going in and thwarting the armed robbery. It was hilarious. Or another one that was similar to that, where where three guys broke into this guy's house with pistols. He defended himself using an AR-15, and the people were like, "That's not fair. He had an unfair advantage."
Yes, yeah.
So
I remember a couple things like that. That's always fun.
Or Micaiah Killer Bryant's mother crying about the cop who shot down her poor innocent baby. My baby wasn't doing nothing wrong except for the act of stabbing in place. Yeah, knife slashing half a second away from planting a serrated blade into between the third and fourth rib.
This was also one of my favorite arguments. So let's poll our law friends here, Good Logic and Legalbytes. One of the defenses was that Micaiah Bryant with the stabbing, that's just something that, kids do with the knife fights. What they do with the knife fights.
You shoot up kids in the plate?
Do you have any knowledge or personal experience of friends or friends of friends did I miss out on a part of my youth? Not having the routine knife fights with my peers? Was that a thing I was supposed to be doing?
When people made that claim about Micaiah, they basically implied that you just don't understand the black community, as if this is like a game of spades they were playing or something, or war. Why? That's when they made it out. Why would you go into a card game and just start shooting everyone? Are you out of your minds?
I don't understand the black community engaged in the knife fighting. I guess you're right.
I think it's a racist thing to say. I think it's the most racist thing in the world to say, but the left is so inherently racist. No, they were saying it.
Yeah, it's I don't.
Yeah, the left is so inherently racist.
Have you ever been involved in some friendly knife fighting? Legalbytes. Next time when we get together in person, would you like to engage in a friendly knife fight?
Yeah.
No, thank you. I would not. I would much prefer not to. So anyway, but let's get back to the
let's get off Micaiah Bryant back into Rittenhouse.
By the way, so much fun. Yeah. I'm sorry.
She's right. This is why we need a cop running the conversation. Thank you.
We're
so much.
also going to talk to. Hey, Nate.
Nate's here to tell us about the friendly knife fights.
Tell us about friendly knife fights.
Did you have friendly knife?
Did you have friendly knife fights were they a regular thing when you were a kid?
I'm from the hood, but I don't remember we didn't have too many friendly knife fights. We didn't have any knife fights, right? I wasn't out there fighting anybody with knives, so yeah.
Friendly
I think
or otherwise.
that was over thing. Yeah, one thing I do want to mention, because I'm not sure if you guys are actually the criminal defense attorneys, but the motion that was with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, that's a very common motion, right? For instance, in a George Floyd case, Eric Nelson made that same motion. But, hey, we don't refer to George Floyd as a victim. In the Ahmaud Arbery case, the first motion in limine was, hey, don't refer to him as a victim. And in some cases, like in the George Floyd case, that motion was defeated. It was defeated in part where you could refer to him as a victim, but only in limited circumstances and only if you have evidence to show, certain things.
Right.
And the same thing. So this is not an uncommon thing. This is, if you're a criminal defense attorney, you don't want your client to be called a victim in the court. So you always are going to make this motion. But I think a lot of people don't understand the background.
You don't want the decedent referred to as a victim. Right.
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 Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah.
You don't want the decedent, but it could be an assault case or anything. You just don't want any of the witnesses on that side to be referred to as victims.
Right.
Yes. Because it automatically implies that your client is guilty. So.
Right.
But they also won on getting them labeled as looters and rioters and all those others, and that's a nice hit. That's a great hit for him.
But so long as there is evidence that they present evidence that they were actually rioting, were actually looting. And apparently the judge made it very clear that he said, hey, you know what, I'm going to allow more right now. And as we get closer to it, if it looks like, there isn't evidence of it, or if there's certain things that you guys want admitted. Well, right. Or as they're going through trial, I guess. Or if certain evidence is not admissible because of developments of trial or whatever. So he said that things can be excluded at a later time. But at this point, that is a victory for Kyle.
There's an interesting case because I had a case with this exact thing happened to me. So my client, he stopped grape. And I'm saying grape, take off the G. So my client stopped the grape. And the police didn't charge the rapist.
That's a good way to put it.
They charged my client. They charged my client with assault.
Seriously,
now you understood great name?
Now it's a spelling test. Oh, great.
Yeah, great.
Sweet.
Well, hey, I'm trying to keep Alita getting money on this video. That's the reason why.
Oh, that's already over.
I appreciate it. That ended when Good Logic came on.
All right. So rape. So what happens is, my client beat up the rapist, and my client was training for the MMA, so it was pretty easy for him. But anyway, so the prosecutor is a dick and wants to go to trial for this thing, and this is the case that was in the New York Times, the front page of the New York Times. So we were there, and so the prosecutor's like, hey, we're going to prosecute your guy. So I said, okay. So I asked for two things. Number one, the assault victim, the alleged assault victim, can't be called a victim, and I'm going to call him a rapist, a serial rapist. So we had to go through that motion of, number one, okay, is it prejudicial to call him a victim? It could be, okay, we're going to limit that. But then on my end, calling him a rapist, they were saying, well, what evidence do you have? Do you have to have some reasonable belief to show that you believe that this person could be labeled as a rapist? And I had 3 rape victims ready to testify. I had the victim that he had been stopped with. So at a point, I was like, yeah, I have all this. And the judge said, okay, well, if that's the case, you have a reasonable basis to say that he's a rapist. And that's when my client's charges were dismissed. So this is a common occurrence. And my client happened to be a minority, and the person who was I'm about to say rapist again. The person who's a rapist happened to be white. So it has nothing to do with race. It just really has to do with the facts of the case. Who took the grapes, right? Oh my God.
That's something in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a very important point to keep in mind that when it comes to that language, because I know I saw a lot of people that are maybe a little bit more left of spectrum that were reacting to this juxtaposition, right? That the judge came down saying, yeah, no, you cannot call them victims. Yes, you may call them rioters and looters. and without that extra detail, saying that, well, okay, but you have to show evidence first in order to show that, because it's all going to Kyle Rittenhouse's state of mind, because the defense is going to try to point this whole incident, this whole evening, as a very chaotic evening, right? Because the more chaos there is, the more violence there is, the more the more reasonable it seems that he was under threat, or he believed that he was under an imminent threat. All of that goes to his defense of self-defense. So calling them rioters and looters, being able to call them rioters and looters by presenting that kind of evidence is going to be very, very powerful for the defense.
And it's true. I'm sorry. I'm just talking psychologically in life. When you identify someone and you label them, this is a very strong psychological trick. In fact, it works even with raising your children. When I'm raising my kids, never once did I tell my kids they were bad kids. I might have tell them I don't approve of that behavior. When you label someone, especially if you can frequently and repeatedly label someone as something, that was the power that Trump employed when he was running particularly in 2016 with Sleepy Joe and or low energy, and lying Ted, and low energy Jeb, and all of these things stuck. Little Marco, all of these things, lying, and Hillary, what was it? Lying Hillary, or
it was just Hillary.
Yeah, I think Hillary didn't even need one. It's just, look, come on, sorry. But the point is, when you label, it fixes it in the public's eye. So if they can constantly refer to, Gage Grosskreutz as, and I'm not saying he was, but I'm saying as looter, or this one as arsonist. So in that case, you're all of a sudden now, that just creates an image in the jury's eye, which they cannot get away from. And it makes them not sympathetic with the decedents, or the ones who were the guy who lost his arm, because they just think this is a bad guy. So it's a very powerful and important win for the defense, that they have the possibility, assuming they can establish at a trial, of actually attaching those labels to these people, which is almost, if they get to that stage, I really feel as if it's game over. He's walking on this. So, but don't be fooled, because it can, that coin has two sides. Where now, if you get evidence that if they can reasonably make an evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse was a vigilante, that these things, or that this guy's a victim, then that could be brought back up. So the defense can play that game, but they have to walk that fine line, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Yeah, but it's not a labeling of Kyle. It's not labeled. The gander is the male one, right? That's the male goose. No, I'm just. It could be either one, but okay. Yeah. All right, but yeah. But my point is, even that label that the prosecution is hoping to earn, that's not a label of Kyle in a negative way. It's just by innuendo, it's a label of Kyle innuendo as far as that they were his victims. But the point is that that's the best case win for the prosecution in the game of labeling, is that there's an innuendo that they're victim of Kyle, but he himself is not being labeled as killer, as opposed to the decedents and the people he shot being negatively associated, having a negative association word attached to that's who they are. And I think that sort of labeling is a more powerful type of thing. And and if they get to a point that they're labeled victims, he lost anyway. Jojo, what I'm thinking is that you may misunderstand me. What I mean by the labeling, they don't have to label Rittenhouse a murderer or them his victims. They could easily label Rittenhouse as a vigilante who was there. They could also, if they have evidence that he was a looter, or if he was a rioter, they could say, well, he was rioting too. He was labeled too, because So I'm saying that sword. I doubt he was involved. I doubt he was involved in that element. Yeah. I'm saying I doubt it too, but you have to be careful, because if you say, well, because of these reasons, he was there, he had a gun, well, he's a rioter just like the rest of them, then they can say, well, guess who else was there? Guess who else had a gun? Guess who we can label as a rioter? That's what I'm saying. That's the trick I would use. Okay, he's a rioter, but guess what? Your guy's a rioter too, under that same protocol. It's a double-edged sword. Okay.
Let me get this super chat. Joseph, thank you so much. He said, didn't the judge refer to what was in Kyle's mind? Rioters, obviously. Sex offender, probably not. Isn't that right? So I know that that a lot of the evidence that they were determining, they had what are called motions in limine, which is what usually you start arguing about before trial. And then through trial, you might argue about again, but this is basically motions in limine are where you decide whether to exclude or include certain pieces of evidence or certain words, certain phrases. So a lot of the evidence that they were talking about actually had to do with Kyle's state of mind. But do you guys have anything else to add on that? No? Okay, cool.
No,
No,
I think it's fascinating, but I really would tell people look, just type in George Floyd not being able to be referred to as victim, or look at Ahmaud Arbery, because any of these big cases, you're going to see this mostly. Because I would say this: if your defense attorney is not bringing up this motion, then you got a bad defense attorney, because it's something that's automatically should be brought up before we start. Right. Don't label these guys victims, right? And I think the fact that it is so common and that people don't understand it is the reason why the media is allowed to mislead you. But with that said, I got to go because I got 2 kids now pulling me because they want to go to McDonald's. So we're headed to McDonald's. I will see you guys later.
Good to see
you
for a minute.
It was good to jump in for a quick second.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in because I felt bad. I was like, all right, just jump in. But I'll see you guys a little later. Good seeing you guys again.
See ya.
When you guys were talking monetization, I was checking out my monetization. I don't know if it's fair to divert you in the middle of this conversation, because this is more important. But that's what if you just saw me making a face, it's that I got a notification that my stream from last night is ineligible for money. It's beyond yellow. It's in the red, because my introduction song that I've stolen in the Hall of the Mountain King, which this comes up like once a month. The same song, they gave me the exact same this exact same claim that I'm violating this use, and I'm like, it's fair use. I transformed it. I put my own video in there. I have a new audio dubbed in there. It's got nothing to do with Hall of the Mountain King. And this is just how YouTube hates me. Yesterday, and you weren't kidding as far as me making you go yellow. Yesterday, I had a sound test with a few of my subs help me adjust sound levels. It was an unlisted stream. 7 people walked in there, and 7 people, like literally 7 views are how many it's had. It's yellow. All we were talking about was sound. It's yellow, an unlisted stream. These guys hate me. They really hate me. God.
To be fair, every single one of my live streams has almost automatically started off yellow. So I don't think it's just you. I know Eric Hunley is like every single one of his streams, especially when he's got the lawyers on, right?
It was a sound test. We were literally talking about sound.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so angry.
This is the sound of silence.
There we go. We got him singing.
I'm sorry for diverting. This is actually a really interesting. The Rittenhouse conversation is a really interesting conversation. There are developments. I'm sorry. No,
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Go on.
So let's talk about one of the other motions in limine that they went over. So I mean that was a really big win, right? Was the victims versus rioters kind of thing. That was a really big win, and I know it was not popular at all with people that are on the left, but I ultimately I think it was the correct decision on both of those. And I think it sounds like you guys agree.
Yeah, I concur with you on that.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same thing as far as when the whole labeling, it's not just a matter. This is, look, do I think he's innocent and he should walk? 100%. So is there an element of skewed bias that I'm hoping he gets favorable decisions like this from the judge? Possibly. I can't deny it. I try and divorce myself from that, as I think we all do. But the reality is, as far as labeling them victims, there's a difference between labeling someone a victim, labeling someone a looter, and that is you can establish facts. I mean, for them to just start off, I think in a certain way, the judge is actually judging the same way on both of them. He's like, look, once you establish the facts that the person earns a label, give them the label. You can't assume facts not in evidence, and this is and sort of almost be testifying about the character nature of the people involved in this situation until you establish it. So it's really almost the same ruling for both of them.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree. So another thing was that apparently there was some video footage of one of the people that were I guess killed that night. Video footage of them that night saying threatening things, potentially, threatening violence and all of that kind of stuff. And so the prosecution tried to have that video evidence kept out. The judge decided to keep it in because the defense successfully argued that that all went to the state of mind of Kyle Rittenhouse again. So, this is them. They plan to use it to sort of create the narrative for the jury that this was a very chaotic situation. He was surrounded by a bunch of people that were threatening him, threatening other people, threatening businesses, and that they had other items with them too that was also being used in a threatening manner. I think he was ultimately hit with a skateboard and all that kind of stuff. So definitely trying to show this whole situation as a very chaotic, dangerous situation that he basically had no choice but to use lethal force. So, what are your guys' thoughts on this one?
I want to ask you whether you think this would have been strengthened. I want to ask both of you if you think this would have been strengthened if Kyle Rittenhouse would have sued the estate of the skateboard swinger for assault. What do you think about that? That never happened, obviously. But
I don't think so. That seems like a bad plan.
Apparently his attorneys agree, but why is it a bad plan?
It just seems like it seems too much somehow. It just seems like it's creating the wrong impression for the jury. And it's creating also because if he sues, then he has to testify in his own civil suit. So it creates a waiver of Fifth Amendment rights. So there's that problem as well.
Okay, that's the best answer.
And then also the prosecution can use that civil lawsuit and ask about that, ask for evidence having to do with that civil lawsuit to say, hey, well, you're suing this other guy that you shot. How does that look?
Yep. No,
right?
You're right. Blew it out.
So,
yep.
yeah.
You can tell I'm not a criminal defense attorney because, like, I'm just brainstorming. I'm brainstorming, like, okay, how can we try and yeah, but you're right. Once he has to get you're right, civil suit, he definitely would have to testify, and testimony is certainly usable, as we saw with Cosby, right?
Yep.
It's usable in any setting, including this criminal case, and it's the worst thing in the world. So terrible idea. We're going to delete that part of the video and move on.
So he has very good legal representation for not taking that course of action. Is what we would conclude. But apparently there was another video that they had tried, that the prosecution had tried to get in, that was from some other night of Kyle Rittenhouse getting involved in a fight that his sister was having with one other woman or something, to try to show that he has a habit of using poor judgment in these kinds of aggressive situations, that he's too aggressive, essentially. But the judge said that's different because that's from another night. It's not from this night. So context is a huge issue here. And probably, I don't know if the judge actually said this, but I would think that would be an attempted introduction of character evidence. Yeah. So, which would not be admissible, it would not be admissible. So you can introduce evidence to show that somebody had a habit of something. So, for example, you can say, you can introduce evidence that that the defendant who ran over someone at a stop sign or something, to say that they didn't run the stop sign is what the defense would be trying to show. So they could say, on this date, this person did not this person stopped fully at the stop sign. On this date, the person stopped fully at the stop sign. On this date, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can create a pattern that would show a habit. So, but if you just try to introduce one instance of someone else, of the defendant doing something good, bad, and different, that could be introduced as, or the attempt would be to try to introduce that as character evidence, which would not be allowed. So because it basically would be, you're trying to prove the ultimate, the ultimate conclusion by some other context, some other activity, like you would have to ask all kinds of different questions about what happened in that other instance. And so that's not admissible. So we have let me get the super chat real quick. Mandalore Wise 01, thank you for your super chat. Isn't the Hall of the Mountain King in Creative Commons by now? I don't know. I don't think so.
I mean, there might be some version of it that's in Creative Commons, but just because it's used a lot in an infringing way doesn't like change the copyright analysis.
I mean, that would be how old it is, right?
It's Pure Gin Suite number 1, op 46 that they're saying has this copyright claim.
Well, here's a wonderful thing about musical recordings that you have to remember. Every new recording of it is copyrightable. So if you hire an orchestra to play anything that's out of copyright, the recording itself is copyrighted because it's a new performance of it. Yeah,
I don't know how they know which one I used. How do they know which one I used? That I use this Peter Gint one as opposed to any of the thousands of times.
Well, I mean, if you really want to get anal on it, you can you can figure it out because no two audio performances are going to be exactly the same.
Right.
So,
well, I'm in the middle of drafting.
You can always run it through a spectrometer or something, or
right. Yeah.
Kind of sounds like sorcery to me, to be completely honest. But
sorcery,
but I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, you're both my counsels. So what I'm writing here is this is the intro song I created for my nightly live streams. I transformed it through video and audio dubbing. I've used it hundreds of times. Seemingly once a month, I get a copyright claim for playing the same vid I played countless times. This is poorly written, and have successfully defended as fair use. Please lift this crap right now. I left out the last sentence, but yeah, I think that's enough. Right? We're good. I think we're good. All right. I'm sorry. We got a super chat. Oh, look, I got you a super chat, so there you go. I'm earning my
yes. Keep. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes. So anyway, so what are your guys' overall impressions on this case heading into trial? Because now they're picking a jury, right? Which I'm sure is going to be tough to try to pick a good jury for this case because of the national attention that it has gotten.
This is Robert Barnes' role in this thing, right? Is picking the jury. That's what I think I think he's supposed to be involved personally in helping select the jury, which is ultimately that is the most important factor here. We know that. We saw that from the Derek Chauvin case. There's nothing more important than having a jury, which you're not looking for a jury that's slanted in your direction. You're just looking for a jury that will actually objectively look at facts and be sufficiently open-minded that they can go either way. You want the seemingly impossible to find independence that pollsters are always looking for in polls. So, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
You don't want me who is exceptionally well informed on the facts and has done a complicated legal analysis already. Yeah, that's no good.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been close to getting on a jury?
I got called for jury duty once, and we got dismissed at the last minute. They settled out, so it was lame.
Oh man.
One time when I was still living in New York, I got called for jury duty, and I think I didn't have to serve though. I remember I made it I remember sitting in that pool there and saying, "Look, I'm an attorney. You guys really want me here?" Besides that guy on the other bench there, I'm not sure if I know him. If I worked with him professionally, I might have. I don't remember. He looks kind of familiar to me. And you just say that. You just point to someone on the other side. You say he looks kind of familiar to me. I'm not sure. So I just want to be, I want to be upfront with you about that. And they're like, okay, next.
I got to the voir dire process. Right after I had taken the bar exam and I was waiting on bar results. So I was like, oh yeah, I have all the time in the world. I would love to be on this jury. And they were like, yeah, we can't have you here. You just took the bar exam.
Well, I don't know. It's just because I know the law, man, that's not fair. I don't know about this case. I can be a good jurist.
You know they don't want lawyers in there. They never want lawyers on a jury.
That's discrimination, man.
But that's legal discrimination.
Do you know that when Rudy Giuliani was mayor of New York, there was actually a famous incident that he particularly made a point as sitting mayor that he went for jury and got called as a member of the jury and sat for the case.
I would love that. That would be
He was such a great mayor. He was so awesome.
He's great USA, and then something happened to him, and it's
By the way, I should point out for those of you who don't realize, he wasn't just sitting mayor of New York. He was a former district attorney.
He's a former AUSA. I don't think he was district attorney.
Right. Well, he prosecuted Gotti successfully.
Yeah, I love how I said it correct, and then you corrected me wrong. That's just. I said, hey, said ASU. Just for you guys don't know, he's a former district attorney. Like, okay. Yeah, great.
Mandalore Wise 01, thank you for your super chat. He said the Barnes said on Eric's stream yesterday that there may be trouble on that front, so on the jury front. So I don't know exactly. I don't know anything beyond that, but I would not be surprised because, like I said, because of the fact that there's been so much media attention on this case, I would imagine that it would be very difficult to get an impartial jury on this case. Because you're so likely to get somebody who has an opinion one way or another. Anywho, yeah. Anywho, what else was there that I have notes on from this? I mean, this is going to be such an interesting case because there's already been so much going on that it's going to make a huge difference in the ultimate conclusion. But there's the idea. So there's the evidence about law enforcement from that night. That's going to be a really big one, right? Because so apparently there was a fight over whether they could allow in comments by law enforcement to Kyle that night, because the defense obviously wants to paint this as, like I said, like a very chaotic situation, show that the police were understaffed, that they were basically under attack because of the violence that was going on that night, but the prosecution, on the other hand, does not want it to look like the police were giving him some sort of consent or approval of his actions.
And that's well, what was the judgment? Was there a judgment on that? Because I'll tell you what I think.
The judge decided to allow it because
that has to be the right answer, because
right.
the whole question goes to his knowledge base. What did he know and what didn't he know? And you take him as you know at the time. This is also, by the way, why the judge did and should exclude things like one of them was a convicted pedophile. Damn it! I'm already helping with the demonetization. One of them was a convicted child interested person. The reason that you exclude that is because you can't luck yourself into things and you can't luck yourself out of things. What matters is what you knew at the time, not what you could have known. Not necessarily what you should have known, although if you're willfully blindfold, then maybe, but what you did know. So you can't use the fact that one of them was convicted of X or one of them was convicted of Y, because you don't know that. You can't know that.
It wasn't relevant.
What you can rely on is what you know. So you, for example,
relevant to the facts.
It isn't relevant to his knowledge base. So, for example, you can say this guy was committing arson. Why? I saw the burning dumpster. Great, no problem. That's knowledge you have. The cop said this to me, the cop said this to me, or this person said that. And incidentally, it would go the exact other way if the facts were different for the prosecution. If the cop said, we don't want you here, this is too volatile, you should go away. If they said those kinds of things to him, the prosecutor would be bringing that in, lockstep, and the defense would be objecting, and it should still come in. Because what matters is what did he know? It goes to his mental state. Amazing concept.
How do you establish his mental state without him taking the stand and getting cross-examined in general?
That's
easy.
You
can show the other things that are going on.
Yeah, you can show mental state a whole bunch of ways. Yeah, you can show mental state a whole bunch of ways. You can show them by the acts. The same way you know the mental states of the dead guys, if you wanted to. Like, how do you know what their mental state is? Well, you can show what they were doing, and then the jury can infer their mental state. You can infer mental state from the act. That's black letter, right? So it's like you did the act, then it's logical to infer the intent. It's logical to infer the knowledge. You don't have to, but you can.
I'm just saying, like, how would we establish that they knew that Rosenbaum was a looter? Like, how would you establish that without him testifying?
That's a great question. That would go to Kyle's knowledge exactly. So what did he observe or what did he know that could lead him to that conclusion? So that would be the question.
But my question is, how could we do that without him taking the stand? How can we establish that he individually knew that Rosenbaum set fire to a place without him taking the stand and say, I saw the guy set fire? So now but you don't want him taking the stand. So it seems like it's a catch-22, isn't it?
Well, you can show what evidence was available for him to see. If you can show that he was in a position, like you could say, it'd be a little bit like saying, how did I know the 7-Eleven was being robbed? Well, there's a video of me in the 7-Eleven while it's being robbed. So it's like, can you infer that I had the knowledge it was being robbed? Yeah. Or
Okay.
I guess you could also infer that I didn't know because I was too busy paying attention to the milk in the cooler.
Right.
But either way, it's
Debating
like
which Oreos I wanted to get.
Debating which. Yeah, I didn't notice the car. There was an active armed robbery. I was too engrossed in the Oreos. Yeah, so
Yes,
you could
double stuffed or regular. Which one?
Double stuffed, man. That was the most critical question in my time. The fact the guy was being shot was really not on my radar. So
Absolutely
yeah,
not.
exactly.
Yes,
It's all about that
exactly.
double stuff life. Yeah.
I know. Double stuff, man. Love it.
I thought maybe the double stuffed Oreos might help with the shooting in some way. Maybe they were hangry. The shooters were hangry. If I gave some double stuffed Oreos, everything would be better.
It's like one of those Snickers commercials where it's like they turn into a diva because they're hungry.
Here, have a Snickers. See if that helps. I'm so sorry about the armed robbery. Oh, okay. We can all move on with our lives. No big deal.
It's okay. No harm, no foul, right? So
Yeah.
let me get the super chat. Nernath God, I can never get your name right. I'm so sorry.
Nerniath. Just call him Nerniath.
Nernath. Okay. Convicted cartograph equals MAP.
You can
Thank
call
me
him
later.
You can call him best mod ever, Nerniath.
Convicted cartograph for a map. That's cute. Yeah, I'm not sure you would be able to get there logically unless you had it spelled out, but thanks for the idea.
I like convicted cartograph. That's actually pretty cool. You know what a map is, right?
Yes.
Okay, I was making sure that I think Legalbytes might be too.
Are you
too innocent and naive to know what a
for the-
what
I
a-
actually am totally trying to work through what a map
You will
is.
never figure it out. You'd probably have to go to Urban Dictionaries, where I suggest.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Or maybe one of Nick Ricada's streams.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just put. I mean, okay. We'll just wrap it up
It's
this
in
way.
the chat. Okay, never mind. I see.
Yes, there you go. It does.
See.
They don't use the word predator. They just say person. But yes.
Yes.
And it's not.
okay.
It's not. By the way, it's not male. It's not male.
Minor.
It's minor.
No,
Yes.
Loner Clips got it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was
Got
that
it.
wrong? Should I have not done that?
John O'Brien, thank you for your super chat. Why can't I talk this evening? All right, thank you for your super chat. Check out State v. Jackson, Wisconsin Supreme Court. Kinda allowed reputation evidence. Interesting.
Well, everything is fact specific, so it wouldn't surprise me in some situation where it might be allowed.
Yeah.
But
Right.
obviously, that's fact
And
specific.
depending on the case, right? Because for example, in a defamation case where somebody's reputation is put at the center of damages, that would be the kind of thing that
it would
would
be
come
extremely
up.
relevant in that case. Yes, exactly so.
Yeah. So there could be cases where somebody's reputation, somebody's character actually is relevant, but generally speaking, when it comes to most cases, I would say using character evidence generally is not going to be admissible, but for certain exceptions. So.
But for certain exceptions, that's law 101.
Yeah,
Except
of course.
when,
There's always an asterisk, right? And that's why we're here.
That's right.
That's why we are here to explain things.
One bite at a time. Hey, yo.
Exactly. So, yeah. So anyway, I think that is just about. I mean, everything that I've got on the Kyle Rittenhouse case, right?
When are they scheduled? When are they scheduled to have jury selections? You know.
I think they're doing it now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think.
On Monday. Okay.
Really? Oh, this is
think.
exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's obviously we are going to be keeping some pretty close attention on this because it's a very interesting case. There's a lot of political emotion that's surrounding it, of course, as well. So we'll keep tabs on it. Anything else you guys want to say before we move on?
Nope.
To something a little bit tastier. Although Oreos are great.
I see what you did. I see what you did there. Or
Let's
maybe
get
it's
on
not
to the-
tastier. Maybe it's just artificial. It's a faker thing. It's more artificial.
Well, either way, let's get on to the next bite, shall we? But I know my husband's just rolling his eyes right now if he's watching. I'm sure he hates my mom jokes. Anywho, okay, so woman is suing Kellogg's, and I tweeted about this. I said that this feels like something that you would see coming out of Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Like Larry David would be so upset about there not being enough strawberry that he would actually sue Kellogg. So this is like the female Larry David has decided to sue Kellogg for the fact that she says that there are not enough strawberries in strawberry flavored Pop Tarts, and it's specifically over strawberry, not any other flavors. She's saying that apparently there are other berries that are being used. There's apples and pears, but not enough strawberries for it to constitute strawberries. So, which is interesting because this is basically a consumer case, right? Because it's false advertising, because they're advertising it as strawberry and it's not really strawberry apparently.
Deceptive practices, sure.
Exactly. So it's gonna be this one's just interesting. I think it's a little bit silly, to be totally honest.
A little bit.
I'm being charitable here, okay? but I think like there are certain cases where something like that makes sense. Like the woman that sued Subway because they said that there's no tuna in their tuna. I think that one has a little bit more weight to it personally, because when you buy meat, you want to know that the meat that you're eating is meat or fish. If you want to take the Catholic interpretation of meat versus non-meat, tuna wouldn't be meat, but like the various forms of animal protein, we should say. We want to think that it is what we think it is, right? So for some reason, that just feels so much more authentic and prescient, I guess, than something like, oh, this thing that has artificial sweeteners and artificial sugars and artificial flavors doesn't have enough strawberry, right? What do you guys think? Do you think there's any distinction between those two cases, or is that just me?
I feel like I should sue New York City because I went there and I didn't see a giant apple, and they call themselves the Big Apple.
There was no tinsel in Hollywood.
Yeah, what the heck is going on here?
Los Angeles.
What the heck is going on here?
I'm gonna reborrow a comment I made yesterday on a Good Logic stream. It's like, if you want something that tastes like strawberries and has the nutritional value of strawberries, there's a really easy way to solve that problem. Buy strawberries. And if anyone who's buying Pop Tarts for their nutritional value, I don't know what to tell you. I just don't even know where to start.
They're shocked, astonished. I can't believe there's not more strawberries in here. It's crazy.
Yeah. So let me share my screen here, because I just want to show you guys what these ingredients are on this, right? So this is the New York Post, their article on it. So okay, woman sues Kellogg, says strawberry Pop Tarts don't have enough berries.
And also, just
in
case
front of the box
you point out
like.
the obvious is that the ingredients are on the box when you buy them. So there's that.
And here they are. Ingredients: whole wheat flour, sugar, corn syrup, enriched flour, wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, vitamin B1, thiamine mononitrate, vitamin B2, riboflavin, folic acid, dextrose, soybean oil, soybean and palm oil. Like there's so much crap in here anyhow.
Contains 2% or less. And then of fructose, which is sugar, wheat starch, calcium carbonate, salt, leavening, vegetable juice for color. And then we finally get to some actual fruit. It's not a huge percentage of the Pop-Tart. I would like to point out also, by the way, that these are put in order of weight of the ingredients. So they're in a specific order.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So what comes first is usually what there's more of than the other stuff.
There's more calcium carbonate than dried strawberries, basically.
That's interesting. Yeah.
More salt.
Baking
There's
soda,
more
right?
salt. There's more salt. Just think about that for a second. There's more salt in there. Whatever amount of salt they're putting in their Pop-Tart, there's more of that than strawberries.
Yeah. That's but there are dried strawberries apparently. So there you go.
But less than dried apples. Like dried pears.
Fewer, yeah. Fewer than dried pears, dried apples.
Yeah, we'll debate on whether lesser or fewer is the right one on this one. It's like, can you count it? I don't know.
Let's get out the microscope.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's the way that they have shown it on their labeling. So I don't understand what the big argument is going to be here, to be honest, because it's like, based on how it is understood the packages are read, you would know, like, okay, there's not very many strawberries in here, right? So I don't know. It's just,
but they got a big picture of a giant strawberry. I thought that was life size. I thought that was drawn to scale. I thought the strawberry there was drawn to scale. This
strawberry was actually in the Pop Tart.
yes, that very one. In every Pop Tart, and you know what? Maybe
that's a good one.
Maybe that's the one they used.
Yeah, the picture's false advertising because that it's the same on every box, and it can't be in every single.
Yeah.
No, but that's good. It
is baked with real fruit.
You know what? Here's the thing. Maybe they used that strawberry for all the Pop Tarts they made that day. So.
It was in the batch.
They took that. No, they used that one strawberry. That was all that covered them for like a week of Pop-Tart making.
The idea of their perpetual soup, which I don't really think is a thing anymore, but apparently this was a thing like in medieval, where you would never when you made a soup, you would never
just keep
completely
watering
finish
it down?
the soup.
Oh God!
No, you would never completely finish the soup, so that when you made soup the next day, you would put some of the soup from the previous day in.
Oh,
and so the idea is you have this perpetual pot. Right, the perpetual pot. It's been literally the same pot since for the last 100 years.
My father-in-law does that with cholent on a week-to-week basis. Yeah. So
but
you guys don't know what cholent
that's how plagues happen, right? I mean, this is how you've got
plagues happen mostly from the plagues mostly happen from the animals being kept in the city and not cleaning up the poo.
Yeah,
and also mixing the poo with the water. That would be the plagues.
Maybe making it into your perpetual stew.
It doesn't. It doesn't. If it's a very small quantity, less than like 1/60th, it's not going to have any impact on that. It's for the emotional.
I don't want any of it. Mandalore Wise 01, thank you for your super chat. He said, I'd like to note that the majority of the chemistry names are likely part of the base ingredients, like the flour of wheat, flour of whatnot. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. But even still, there's more of those individual items than actual strawberries, apparently. But there are strawberries in it. So you can't say that there is, because that's also a difference between this case and the Subway tuna fish case, is that their allegation was that there is not even a scintilla of tuna in Subway's quote unquote tuna.
Yeah, I think that case got dismissed, if memory serves correctly.
Did it? I don't remember. I probably.
Yeah, I think because Subway's like, yeah, they're all, it's all tuna. It's all tuna all the way down. We don't understand the problem. So yeah, I think it got dismissed.
Yeah. Oh, boiling the stew keeps the bacteria down. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Depending on, I mean, if you boil it enough, right? So, but still, that's I don't.
Well, yeah, but
that's one of those
now we
practices.
can get into we can pull out really fun concepts like Avogadro's number, like, because when you continue doing that, the idea that there's some still in the original is ludicrous, because you've completely diluted it. So if you have a tenth of the thing and you put it into the next pot, and you get to a tenth again, you're basically left with 100th and then 1,000th. Yeah. So it's more of a conceptual idea than a reality. And then you get into Avogadro's, which is 10 to the 22nd or 23rd, and then when you get below that, you don't even have a single atom of the original left by numbers. So yeah,
that's a good comment, you guys.
9 point something times 10 to the 23rd is Avogadro's number. How close am I? I'm trying to go back in my. I haven't thought about this since undergrad, so that's about 23 years ago. How close am I?
I don't know. I mean, math is magic, man. This is why we went to law school, right? So we don't have to do math.
I will tell you that Jewish law actually there are
6.23 times the 23rd. Yeah, boom, close.
Nice, well done.
Oh man.
So yeah, what I was saying is that under Jewish law, they actually estimate flavor and what percentage of an item, if you add something in, at what percentage will you no longer taste it? And they actually, and there's a lot of ramifications in the Jewish law if you cannot taste the product there in it anymore. So like for example, if something non-kosher would fall into something that's kosher, and you cannot taste that which is non-kosher. So in that case, it would not, in theory, ruin the ability for a Jew to eat it. It would still be deemed kosher because you just can't taste it. And that measurement they use is 1/60th. So they say if it's less than 1/60th, you're not allowed to add intentionally. But if there's an accident that happens and it falls in and it's less than 1/60th, we say no human can actually taste it. So so when we're trying to measure here as far as yardsticks, as what point you're not going to taste the actual item that's in there, I think that they were really good. They were really good at scientifically understanding these sort of things. So I would defer to them. So there you go.
I wonder what Jewish law would say about these Pop Tarts.
I don't think they're kosher. I don't think they're kosher.
And what's Jewish law have to say about non-food food? Surely that's got to be the same.
Should be good, right?
Yeah. This is not known to nature and possibly God. How could it possibly be okay?
Oh man. So, well, I think we have cooked this last story well enough.
Oh my gosh! Stop.
Okay, you deserve a penalty.
Thank you.
I'm out.
Thank you. Before we go, Cool Frog says that I should convince you guys to do a Laurel and Hardy remake. I think that sounds good. What do you guys think?
But I don't love him.
I mean, Three Stooges would be more appropriate, I think.
But then who would be the third stooge? Obviously not me.
Uh-huh. I think there was...
Anyway, on that note, so this has been wonderful. So thank you so much to everybody that has been watching. I think this is my highest live number yet for watched live streams. So I'm loving the numbers. I'm loving that people are coming around and watching.
You found the right formula. You found the right formula of guests.
I think so.
It's the right formula.
Of course. So I need to keep bringing you guys back. That's the answer, right? Has nothing to do with the subject matter, of course.
No, what are you kidding me? Kurt and I could talk about anything, and we just really come reeling, running.
Yes, of course. So thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Good Logic, subscribe to Uncivil Law. Go check out everybody's locals pages because we're all on there. And like I said at the beginning, I just set up memberships. So if you guys are interested, you want to support the channel, it's super helpful. So become a member. You'll make Indyzilla or Indysaurus over here very happy. She's sleeping. It's fine. All right. Until next time. See you guys.